instead. That's nice to see. So even though we haven't seen North Georgia really be able to march forward with a lot of convincing attacks, at least the backline up until now has been secure. Can't get the read on the bounce, and that's finally our first goal. 10 seconds to go for Kennesaw trying to close this one out.
Yeah, still with the pressure here from Kennesaw. Now only our second demo. This one from downtown, and that's going to be an own goal here at 3 seconds. We spoke a little too soon here, Danger Talk. Slavip left side, little tap, not really taking away possession. Now definitely does. This player going up the double tap. Hugh Dog and North Georgia come from behind victory with the Puma symbol on the side.
As we've seen many time with new rosters in the beginning of the semester, this might be the first time these players are really playing together at all. So this is really setting the tone for how you guys all click together. Kwong trying to bury one here on the near post, and he does just that. Better. Be able to pad those stats. Kwong throwing it right back in. That should be open, but it's just wide instead.
Almost gets the nose down onto it. A couple members fighting, twisting, and now an open net the other way going for North Georgia. Nobody's almost hitting payload. Now is Joel. A little soft hit right there. Kind of just puts it in the breadbasket of a couple North Georgia players. That's really, really bad as this one comes all the way down from the other side.
Being able to con the defense out of a clear that gets you the ultimate goal, as we will be able to enter into that 1-1. Maybe not for long as that clear gets away. Hugh Dog into Archie, and well worked from North Georgia. Safe to the side. They're feeling like heroes. They're keeping it up. Slavip into the ceiling. Sharky doesn't get it. Joel with a deflection. It's Quonk at 0. Hugh Dog in the way. Another save. North Georgia will very much so take that ball hitting the grass. Overtime somehow.
Now coming up for the serve. Hugh Dog down. That's a bouncer just a little bit too high though as Sharky tries to continue the theme. Down bottom. And Archie does it here for North Georgia. Set up all day long. Now shoots in right now, but Quonk is going to win that 50. He's screaming off to the side. Bounce off some wall and now in his middle until North Georgia gets another shot at it.
Watch me open for Hugh Dog, and they will make no mistake. Kwong, I gotta say, a great effort, but sometimes you need something even greater. You're seeing a player get thrown all the way across, like Joel's really just flailing, and you're thinking, okay, well, I probably have enough time to go to the corner, and then instead, it is in your net. Something they're becoming quite
fading live. Welcome back. It's the end of the week, and it is also week 1 of college esports here at Esports U, and we've got some ECAC League of Legends. I'm Jay Turbo, joined alongside RMC. How you doing as we're back in business?
Well, Jay Turbo, like I said, end of the week, start of the split here for the ECAC League of Legends, and tonight we've got the Elite Master Plus Division, Jay Turbo, the highest level here in the ECAC, so you know we gotta be hyped.
Oh yeah, got that creme de la creme. We've got Brooklyn College on one side, we got St. Clair Academy on the other, and I mean this Brooklyn College team, it's the same roster they had in CLOL and NECC last season.
Yeah, so let's start with them. This Brooklyn team with Phil, Whelp, Snatch, Invisible Love, and Princeton, who actually will not be playing tonight. It's Smurfy who's going to be subbing in that support role. This is a team that has some experience together, more than a year, and you know in collegiate, these rosters change up semester to semester, so having that experience, that's massive in the early season. But coming up against them, St. Clair Saints. Now, if you're into esports, collegiate esports, you're probably going to recognize that name. St. Clair has been a powerhouse in esports across a whole bunch of titles. In fact, I think they're currently nominated or one of the finalists for getting the Skulls Award Collegiate Program of the Year. So this is a school that's really good at churning out really good teams.
Yeah, and finding that talent, finding that depth is, of course, going to be one of those things we know from this squad. So we're going to expect that same level of play, that quality. Isn't the roster we've seen play together as far as either of us know? We went back through the archives, checked things out, and there wasn't any record of them together. So this is going to be a very, very interesting debut to see what another St. Clair team looks like here on the Rift.
Yeah, like we said, it's new season, so it's, perfect timing for us to see new teams, new blood here in the ECAC, and even more importantly, see how they're gonna stack up. Now, J-Turbo, a lot of times with teams which are a bit newer, and maybe St. Clair Saints Academy has been working together, they just haven't debuted yet. But if they are truly a team that's new together, I'm expecting to see a lot more solo queue-esque champions with a lot of strong skirmishing and dueling potential. And some of their players have been spamming a lot of champions in solo queue, notably Solitary Skill, Gangplank, who just got a buff on this patch, been playing a lot of that. Bat Rick Grimes, their jungler. Briar, a brand new champion. I don't know about you, J-Turbo, I have not had the opportunity to cast a Briar game yet, so fingers crossed, I'm hoping that one might come up this series. And Grey Gorilla, their AD carry. Ezreal is definitely a champ I'm going to be keeping my eyes on in the ban phase of this game.
Yeah, and all of those, keeping track of them, right? That Briar, of course, brand new in the jungle. And I'm really hoping we get a chance to see her. Of course, you always want to start new season, new champ. Why wouldn't you want to have it all in the mix? I mean, she's insanely lethal. I know that it's messed up some of my ranked games, sometimes in my hands, sometimes in someone else's hands. But she's got that lethal potential. She can get some resets going. And of course, she has that longer threat. So she brings that added element to her ganks and her mid game, and of course that chase down potential at the end. But going bot side, as you said, that Ezreal feeding into this sort of pseudo poke meta that we're getting into, but we won't get a chance to really see the direction these teams want to take until we get into draft. And I've got to say, going into this first draft, you'd think that a team like St. Clair would maybe have some of that edge just because they have so much program support going into their preparation.
For sure, and also the sheer player pool they have as well. Their overall ranks are generally pretty high, and we say this, the Elite Master Plus division. Well, there are multiple Masters level players on St. Clair Saints. Now we are into pick and ban, J-Turbo. Brooklyn College on the blue side, so they'll have first pick, and first ban is going to be that GP that we were talking about.
Yeah, you mentioned it. They're taking it away. This GP lethal in the hands of someone who knows how to use it, and Solitary been bumping it in solo queue, making sure it's ready for day one of the season. Can't let it happen, and of course, it just gives you so much late game insurance. One Gangplank barrel, ADC's gone off the map in an instant.
Yeah, and especially with the changes to the ultimate as well, the additional slow. If you're talking about wiping out AD carries, if you don't have an escape built in, if you're not an Ezreal, which, I don't know if Invisible Love has been playing that one. Well, Invisible Love has been playing that quite a bit through the split. But if you're not on a champion which has that instant mobility, you can get run down with the additional slow. For now, we're seeing the Graves ban away from Whelp. And J-Turbo, when I was looking at Whelp's OPGG, his most played champion is Graves. His second most played is Shaco. And if we're going to see jungle bans, I kind of want to see that one banned because I really hate seeing Shaco, whether I'm playing with or against him.
Yeah, it's one of those incredibly polarizing champs, and if you know the matchup, you can punish it, or if you don't know the matchup, you're going to get punished. And I think with Whelp, I mean, even their team manager, I think, sent us a heads up. Hey, this guy plays Shaco. Make sure it's in your heads. Make sure that you're aware of it. Now we're getting to ban number 3. And St. Clair, they got rid of the Camille, haven't gotten rid of that Shaco quite yet. But it's Brooklyn to see what their final ban's going to be. And it looks like that Kaisa, as she's been tearing up different leagues across this past summer, now looking like one of the hot ADCs coming through.
Yeah, Kai'Sa's especially interesting because it's an AD carry. She's evolved throughout the year. Early on, when she started coming back to meta, it was because of Static Shiv, and we're seeing AP Kai'Sa be that poke menace. And with the constant nerfs we've been seeing to Static Shiv, she's now shifted away from that and more towards a early burst lethality style build, especially around that Umbral Glaive. So interesting to see that one ban, the last ban coming through from the Saints, is going to be a Thresh away from Smurfy there. So they're trying to take away some of the potential engage safety options. I wouldn't be too worried about Invisible Love. There's still a lot of AD carries with self-peel, things like Ezreal, things like Xayah, which is also very meta currently.
Yeah, and I like this initial focus from Brooklyn on the Rakan.
Okay.
He's on my list of top 2, top 3 supports. He just has so much flexibility. He gives you that engage option, and of course you can pair him with just about anybody in the bot lane. And of course, Xayah being in a solid spot right now. Always love to see that lovers duo, as there's the Ezreal locked in.
Okay. Yeah, St. Clair going for comfort, as we were talking about. That is something that Grey Girl has been spamming in solo queue recently, and it works really well against what's currently meta. We're seeing a lot of Xayah. Zeri just got recently nerfed as well. And with Kai'Sa banned, there's not a lot of threat in that bot lane to be able to punish an Ezreal. What I'm kind of looking for now is what support do you pair with it? Because Ezreal's such an independent AD carry, he doesn't need a support to do much for him. Okay, Seraphine, that works. That's a very team-oriented potential support. It could still be flex mid. I don't know if Codito plays it, but it could be flexed.
Yeah, not necessarily expecting it to go mid. Gone, I think, are the days of the quadruple flex Seraphine, like when she came out, but she still has that potential, expecting it to be in that bot side, already a solid poke lane getting put together. But as you mentioned, I think picking for the team, picking for those later game team fights, picking for those extra moments is Brooklyn finish off that lovers duo and lock in the Lissandra as well. So another strong pick in the mid lane.
Yeah, Lissandra just getting buffed in this patch. Her root is a little bit longer on her W there. It surprises me, though. The Xayah Rakan makes sense. The lovers duo, of course you're going to put them together. Lissandra, though, has generally been a more counter-pick style champion. You don't generally blind this. And with the potential for a Seraphine flex as well, Lissandra doesn't do amazingly well into Seraphine. I can only think that they're picking it to try and lock down this Ezreal, to have a dive buddy to make sure that Ezreal can't just, arcane shift away. And Codito actually going with the Tristana as an answer to Lissandra. So a lot of push on both sides. But I feel like there's a lot of kill pressure as well, because now depending on what the junglers are, Lissandra can burst out a Trist at level 6.
Yeah, I think that is a very real concern, is you have Frozen Tomb plus the rest of your kit, you're done for. This Tristana walks too far forward, press W, she's done for. But now as we're getting into that second round of bans, we'll see how these squads want to finish this off. As you mentioned in the jungle, that Shaco taken off the table by St. Clair. Do not want to let it go through. I mean, you let 3 picks pass, and Brooklyn, I think, happy to let that just be an extra ban slot taken away, as that's going to be the Renekton as well, banned out on the top side, one of the strongest top laners on this patch, so makes complete sense. And the Aatrox Ornn banned away from Brooklyn, so a lot of focus up top side against Solitary Skill.
And I wonder if Solitary Skill is going to default to something more dual heavy, like the Fiora that he plays a lot as well, because it feels like a lot of his team-oriented top laners that he's been playing more recently have been taken away. The other thing, J-Turbo, is J4 didn't get banned, and it doesn't look like it's going to get picked. Instead, we're seeing the Wukong hover from St. Clair. That's interesting, because Wukong has had a couple of nerfs over this year, which have taken him out of meta, and it feels like J4 has taken that place. Really strong team fighting, really strong ganking.
Yeah, and it seems like for St. Clair, they just want to have the Wukong go in Cyclone and finish it off with the Encore. But Brooklyn as well, they're going heavy team fighting. And there's a bunch of engage locked on top of it. The Malphite go button. And you've got the Nocturne Paranoia as well to turn off the lights and dive someone. And for St. Clair, I'd say they're lacking a little bit of peel, as they're going to look for one final option. And are they going to go with the Mordekaiser to round things off? Just a few more seconds to lock in. I don't hate this option. It helps them own the top side. It helps them take away an engage option. So I don't hate that from St. Clair. I like that. I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, I really like it as well. It's a good match into Malphite in the laning phase. And a lot of times with Mordekaiser, you can remove that one key target away from the other composition. Brooklyn, let's talk about Brooklyn College's composition for a little bit, because I really liked what they got in isolation. The Nocturne and the Malphite, the Nocturne and Malphite, pardon me, to round things up. They needed dive buddies with Lissandra. The buff didn't touch her damage. And that's something Lissandra's always been a bit light on is her damage. They needed a dive buddy to be able to kill that Ezreal. So Malphite with that ultimate Nocturne with the ability to chase down, it's great. But St. Clair, they've got answers of their own. Now they've got a Wukong who, with the double Cyclone, you pretty much still guarantee a knock-up on the Xayah if he can actually get in there. It's great peel as well. And as long as Grey Gorilla kind of doesn't get locked down immediately, they're going to be able to create enough space. And that's even with the Seraphine's Encore as well to lock things down. So I like what Brooklyn College have drafted in isolation, but I think the Saints have drafted a lot of good answers in the specific matchups.
Yeah, I think so for sure. 2 mobile, basically ADCs as your carries. If you're going to have ADCs be your primary source of physical damage, let them be mobile. Have that jump away. Have that arcane shift for the Ezreal, right? The fact that you're not going to be locked down. The fact that you can free up the Seraphine early on to maybe protect that Tristana. Because you said level 6, Lissandra has that burst option. Tristana's a squishy individual, and Nocturne tacked on top. Send the Seraphine up. Maybe that 2v2 looks a little bit different. But overall, it seems like both teams looking at some solid team fighting, going back to basics and getting some comfort under their belts.
Yeah, and because we haven't really seen the teams, J-Turbo, and how well they can execute or what their preferred style is, at least for the side of St. Clair, something that stands out to me is going to be how the fights are going to run long. So there's a lot of upfront burst damage from Brooklyn, but St. Clair, they've got double AD carry, and notably, they actually have longer range than Brooklyn College. Xayah is great when she's cutting backwards, playing defensively. Going forward, she's going to struggle. Against the likes of a Tristana Ezreal, who outranges her, I think that's going to be doubly worse. So I really need to see Brooklyn coordinate that initial engage properly, because if it just kind of devolves into smaller fights, I think St. Clair is going to run away with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's those resets, those smaller skirmishes this Tristana wants to see. But oh boy, Brooklyn's got a lot of power on their side as we're on the Rift. A little 5 points to kick off the fall season. The top side, Phil and Solitary, gonna trade Qs. That's what you do. A little proc one way and the other, and you see the reset from Phil, because of course you don't want to do too much. But all things considered, a basic start, nothing crazy. I think both of these teams just want to have a as calm and collected a start to the season as they can get.
Well, hopefully, J-Turbo, as spectators, we do get a little bit of action. And if we do get action, my eyes are drawn right now to the mid lane, and specifically St. Clair's mid lane, because Triss has really strong early levels. She's actually one of the strongest, level 2, level 3 champions in the game. And when we look at their junglers, for Brooklyn College, Whelp wants to hit level 6. Nocturne pre-6 ganks aren't that effective, and his dueling potential is somewhat limited. It's not the worst, but it's not the strongest either. St. Clair, on the other hand, Wukong does get more effective early ganks. He's got bigger bursts of damage, and when you combine that with a Tristana, there is kill threat if they can chunk Snatch in some of those earlier trades.
Yeah, and I think that early damage is exactly why you might want this Tristana into Lissandra matchup. You, of course, have the mobility for later on, but the push early on to match her Qs coming through the lane and making sure you keep that standing. Solitary and Phil standing up, and a couple missed minions, but hey, still shaking off the rust.
Yeah, but we'll kind of see how that goes. Topside, is always very, very trade heavy. Now, that mid lane, I want to go back to that a little bit, because I do think Codito's on a bit of a timer as well. We mentioned before Lissandra can burst out a Triss at level 6, and actually watch Whelp's level 6, because a Nocturne Lissandra combo, even with the sheer amount of sort of mobility and disengage that Tristana has in her kit, it's not going to be enough. Flash, rocket jump, buster shot, Nocturne's going to ignore all of that with that semi-global. And if Snatch ever lands a root, I guess that's why you take the cleanse, because if not, you're guaranteed dead.
Yeah. The second you see a Tristana into Lissandra, you need the cleanse, and right here, Whelp spotted already with that priority taken from Codito, able to get that information, feed it on over to Badrick Grimes, as both junglers making their way bot side, starting up top. And RMC, are you expecting us to see any early shenanigans with that Scuttle spawning in just a few seconds?
If we do, I think it's going to be coming from the side of St. Clair. One thing St. Clair's done really, really well so far is pressure the lanes. If we look at every single lane, St. Clair's the one pushing right now, which makes that Scuttle very dangerous for Whelp if they do actually meet up. And we already mentioned before, Nocturne early is not actually that strong, so yeah, if there is shenanigans, expect to see it from St. Clair. I'm more interested to see if we get a gank off in that bot lane onto Grey Gorilla and Bloodstains. They're hard to kind of punish, but they are shoved up right now.
Yeah, it does seem like with that wave bouncing back, Walt feels confident enough to go for this scuttle. No smite in hand, so we might see a fight here. Is already just down to 200, and seems Wukong is going to give it up. And Whalp wants this fight back, is in the mid side. Snatch sent away by Codito, and that's going to be just the scuttle taken by Whalp, and Badrick Grimes ferried over to the top side.
I love that Whalp just like walks into the river, doesn't care about anything that's happening, just starts up that scuttle. And both junglers didn't have smite, so there was no smite fight to be had. It was literally just, okay, well, Whalp started it, and he got there earlier. And part of that, I feel like, comes down to St. Clair's bot lane. Neither Grey Gorilla nor Bloodstains had wards up. I thought that was actually very risky, but they didn't die. And it's like, okay, great for you in lane, but you also didn't see Whalp going for something that you could have prevented.
Yeah, the fact is they didn't take that early advantage, get the consistent vision down, and then just this big wave bouncing back to the St. Clair turret bot side, giving Brooklyn that space. But considering we were answered, actually, never mind. We've got a fight just started up. Exhaust and Ignite dropped. Bloodstains is the target. Seems there won't be any on this bot lane quite yet. But Brooklyn bringing the early fight as Codito as well in the mid lane, starting things off strong against Snatch.
I don't know how Bloodstains lived there. I guess the shield was just barely enough, but great play from Brooklyn to recognize the opportunity. And I think from the side of St. Clair's bot lane, you got to respect that Rakan Zaya a little bit. The passive damage they can put out is really strong, and Rakan, you can see if they get onto the Seraphine, it's a kill. So I expect after that, St. Clair probably going to reset their bot lane, come back, and play a little bit safer if they want to do that.
Ooh, and Snatch trying to keep that one going. And yeah, I think to your point that St. Clair bot lane realizing just how fragile they are, especially moving forward with no exhaust for quite a while. And while sure that's traded on the other side with no ignite, this Zaya has been farming up. She's going to have more early damage, more kill potential than the Ezreal anyway. Is up top side, it's an island, they're farming, nothing else to be said.
Actually, there is something to be said for Phil, because earlier on, Phil was actually down a massive amount of CS from the early levels, which is somewhat what we expect from, the Mordekaiser and Malphite matchup. But I'm looking at the CS numbers now, and Phil has actually caught up and is pushing ahead right now, denying solitary skill any CS from this particular wave at the turret right now. So huge props to Phil for being able to catch up. As a Malphite, if you're not behind, you're ahead.
You do have that eternal utility with your ultimate. And of course, not falling behind means you won't be that extra 200 gold to pick up on the side lane. Badrick Grimes, not quite spotted out. Does get a little information attempt. This is just once again going to be Brooklyn maintaining their position in that bot side. As of course, they're going to have that damage advantage for quite some time, as Ezreal has gotten his blue little duo, the Sheen and the Tear. That's not very many combat sums. Just a bunch of mana.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because we look at both these bot laners right now, and because Invisible Love is sat on the Noon Quiver, the farming component rather than the actual damage component, Ezreal is not at a strong point, but Zaya's also got a weak point, so there's this small, tiny window for Grey Gorilla where you can still try and outpoke, but shortly, like you said, J-Turbo, that Zaya is going to become a bigger threat. My eyes are more watching the junglers, though, because remember what we said before, for the side of Brooklyn College, watch Whalp's level 6. Just hit. Paranoia is online. Every lane for St. Clair now has to be careful with its semi-global gank.
Yeah, and in fact, he's on this top side. We already saw some attempted skirmishing in the mid lane from Codito, and if maybe he gets caught on the wrong side of a Nocturne ulti one of these times, he chooses to engage. Instead, that is going to be another just huge chunk taken by Codito, and Snatch maybe trying to walk back on in. That's going to be the Frozen Tomb. That's going to be the Nocturne in, and that's going to be first blood for a while, but it's quickly traded back off the bomb. So it's a 1-for-1 off the engage taken by Brooklyn.
Fractions of a second change. I thought Codito actually got first blood, but Hope just barely able to get that one, and Snatch dangerous now. Phil, is he in trouble?
Oh, it seems that we will not be seeing Cyclone committed quite yet. Solitary skill, I guess, just not quite ready. And of course, Phil, I think, aware of the possibility The gank coming through, wisely playing back, as that is going to be just the Herald started up instead.
And I don't think they saw that. Oh, open to the ball lane? Where'd he come from?
Not sure, and Smurfy going low from the barrage, and that is just going to be a clean kill away for the side of Brooklyn bot lane.
Yeah, we were talking about Phil, kind of suspecting that maybe I might be ganked after that play in the mid lane, but bot lane, I think, well, using the paranoia mid, basing, immediately rushing bot, burning the flash, caught St. Clair Saints off guard a little bit, and that's massive for help. The faster can accelerate this Nocturne, the better. And not only did they accelerate the Nocturne, Invisible loves Smurfy finding the 2v1 kill on that slippery Ezreal.
Oh, and that entire wave just gone for Grey Gorilla. Sure, it's going to get absorbed by Bloodstains, but that is just so much gold, so much experience denied as well. And this Brooklyn bot lane are just continuing to step up, and the top side, Phil, is keeping up against Solitary, not letting this become an island that's going well for St. Clair, and everything looking up as they're delivering on their early intentions or early win conditions. This Nocturne ultimate, gotta kill. This bot side converting with the Rakan is lots of individuals spotted, and Walt just gonna reset here.
Yeah, looks like if they let him. Patrick Grimes kind of poking his head in a little bit there. Gonna delay that one. Dragon is up right now, and I think for Brooklyn College, they can actually see this one over. You don't really care too much for this early objective. Instead,
it's just going to be a kill on the ADC. Everyone else left. Now it's another 3v3. Teleport coming through for Snatch. Out from the backside. Coming through from base. And now this is just going to be an attempted escape for St. Clair. And it looks like Bloodstain is going to be the one left behind. Sure, that's an encore dropped, but this is going to be a long walk down. Actually, Codito's here. Maybe just for your own demise as you're knocked up. Rocket jumps away, and that's going to be a 5th kill on the board for Brooklyn and Dragon to boot.
That's a great concert from Bloodstains, but after the encore, it was the curtain call. A little bit unfortunate for them there for the side of St. Clair Saints. They just found themselves on the wrong side of town, and it's such a weird way it happened, too. The fact that it was because Whelp went in with that paranoia onto Grey Gorilla that found Brooklyn College suddenly on the aggressive foot. Now, Grey Gorilla, does he know? Okay, he's got enough space. He should be fine.
Oof. That space, I'm still scared. I'm still scared for this Ezreal. Snatch, what are you doing this close? Trying to get like you won't be able to protect your plates. You might just lose your life. We're going to see the jump in. That's the bait! Never mind, you knew exactly what you were doing. You were getting Whelp, another kill.
Calling applets, but not for me. Snatch is able to pull that off. And Whelp, again, Whelp is finding all these kills, JW. He's now 4-0-1. He's not even needing to use the paranoia for some of these ganks. So it feels like he's getting almost double the sort of action that we'd expect to see from a Nocturne. The downside, or the only problem so far, Brooklyn, is that the solo lanes, despite the jungle pressure, aren't winning their individual matchups. Snatch is up CS, up experience, and not winning the 1v1. Phil on the Malphite is eventually going to get outscaled, so it does feel like Brooklyn needs to be able to get these objectives, accelerate the pace of the game a little bit further with all this lead that they have on their jungle.
Yeah, that's one thing, is the fact St. Clair were able to pick up the Herald, one of those main snowballing tools you'd look towards for a team like Brooklyn in this situation. They just don't have a great way of chunking through these turrets. They don't have a Tristana who can just shred down turrets early. This Xayah still needs some time before she's a real menace, and I think that means a lot of these plays, sure, it's gold getting funneled into Whelp, but are we seeing that same map impact that you need for this kind of composition?
Yeah, and I love that you raised that point, J Turbo, because you're right. Like, Brooklyn College, they're getting a lot of kills, but ultimately, what wins the game isn't kills. It's actually taking turrets, taking structures, and because St. Clair got that early Herald, it's going to slow things down. Now, kills, of course, do translate into strength, and
oh, wait, we've got an engage instead. It's going to be another bait mid lane, another life save for just a second. It does get answered back. Rick Grimes, you're going down here, bud, as that's going to be a double for Whelp, all the way up to 6-0, and I think Snatch is just fine playing bait.
Yeah, hey, you know what? You picked that Lissandra. You're doing your job. It's CC and bait the entire way. Now, Whelp, no paranoia is going to make this probably not something that they can dive. And it still comes back to JJ, bro, the fact that you got the kill. What else do you get? You already got the dragon earlier. And notice that Brooklyn College is having problems pushing up. You mentioned Xayah needs time to scale. Xayah also doesn't have the range to easily siege up turrets.
That's very true. And the fact of the matter is, you'd expect that to turn into a quick couple of plates going Qualp's way mid lane. But Solitary Skill had the read on the play, started moving down, and isn't even losing that much farm for it or plates up top. So even though St. Clair is about 4k down, that's pretty much just in these kills put together by Qualp, and it's not in plates. It's not across the map.
Yeah, and now for Brooklyn, they kind of need to force St. Clair into an actual fight where they can kill them and then push in. Best bet is probably going to be Herald and Cloud Drake coming up in a bit. But if you're St. Clair Saints, you've got skill on your side. You've got double marksman, and one of them is an Ezreal who's going to scale spectacularly. Tristana as well actually has a really strong late game with the range that she gets from her passive. And Mordekaiser's going to scale. So if you're St. Clair, don't go fight that dragon. And for Herald, if you can delay it, all the better. But you can afford to lose that and not lose the game.
Yeah, because right now it is Boston. They know they have the early lead. They know they have to make that difference because Nocturne's not going to scale as Smell Fight. Shore's going to become a great. Xayah is going to be a fantastic late game carry, but you mentioned it. Late game ADC is really hard to beat, especially with the amount of chaos that can come through for St. Clair. And now, it doesn't look like Boston are especially well set up to take any of these. We're going to see another kill. We're going to see another death. Didn't need to cleanse. Everything was committed. That's just another unfortunate death. As this will be some decent damage mid, and this will be, I think, the Herald picked up as well.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no plates, and you can already see Rick Grimes was kind of deciding, maybe I should cover mid. Wasn't in there in time to stop the wave from crashing in. But it's actually trying to answer by setting up vision for this dragon. They're going to seep the Herald. That's fine. But despite the vision they're seeing on the bot side, I don't think St. Clair can actually contest the Shrike.
No, I don't think so either. The bot lane is just too far behind. Already got Kraken Slayer online for Invisible Love in comparison to just that Hard Axe and Sheen.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so they're backing off. They're not giving this one. Snatch able to take the mid lane turret, though. That's huge, JJ, and not something I expected. I thought Rick Grimes would have covered that, but, you know, kind of walking away really allowed Snatch to just go all in on that. Now, we should also note the cleanse from Codito. You're right, it didn't help and perhaps probably shouldn't have been used, but it does also tell us that it's not safe for Codito anymore in that sort of 1v1.5 situation. Anytime that Paranoia is up, you're dead. And if Codito can't lane against them, Grey Gorilla can't lane against them, the only person who's safe in a separate lane is going to be Solitary Skill.
Oh, but it seems instead, St. Clair trying to make this fight happen. Instead, we're going to see the teleport committed. And now we've got all 5 players, it seems, for St. Clair playing around this right side, this bottom side of the map as Solitary's moved down. And everyone from Brooklyn here as well, just Snatch in the base and gonna be dragon taken by force of numbers.
Yeah, and I understand what the Saints were doing. I like the idea. They were trying to get the gank off early so that they have a numbers advantage to force that dragon fight. But the moment Brooklyn kind of stopped the initial engage, they won it. And you could see they just kind of walk in there. They take what's theirs. Unfortunately, Codito and Grey Gorilla as well had to fight over the CS in the bot lane. That's not ideal when both your marksmen have to compete against each other for CS.
Yeah, it's quite unfortunate, as we are going to see that bot turret finally fall, and oh, that's going to be a dead Seraphine in a second, and that's going to be a continuation with the charm, as that's going to be a clone popped up. That Rick Ryan burns away, and it's going to be Phil picking up the kill, I think off the bombies. That's going to be 2 towers, maybe 3, as that Herald's still marching. We've also got Codito trying to dive in on a Snatch. We'll see if there's enough damage on this Tristana. A little late on the Frozen Tomb, and that's going to be the solo kill for 1. But an open inhib bot lane as this Herald just marched all the way up.
Shelly just got the biggest value I've seen in a hot minute, JJ, but all the way from first turret all the way through to inhibitor. And Broken College, we were saying that, hey, late game might be an issue. They just sped up the schedule of this game. There might not be a late game if they can keep this sort of pressure up. That's an exposed bot lane now. And for St. Clair Saints, I'm a little bit worried about how they're going to try and defend this bot lane, much less try and contest anything else on the map. And if somebody's to sit bot lane, that gives Brooklyn free reign on everywhere else on this map.
Yeah, I think for Brooklyn, it's a call to now. Okay, bot lane, that's checked off. We've got an open inhib. We can take that whenever we're sieging next time. And instead, it's just going to be about shoring up this top side, getting that last tier 1, setting up for Baron. That's going to be in a minute, because that's how you let your 9-0 Nocturne win the game, is you get that early Baron right on spawn. As match, not sure how I feel about this position. Will get away with it, and is just surrounded for a second. He won't get away. Still a Wukong nearby, still trying to get this wave, and it doesn't seem like there's a fight coming.
So here's the problem, St. Clair. We don't feel comfortable, J-Turbo, because we know where Whelp is. But St. Clair doesn't. Now they know. Now they might pull the trigger, but Solitary Skill might be dead first.
Yeah, as that is actually going to be the Death Realm put together. It looks like Solitary Skill instead is going to get a solo kill, going to get the extra stats. Now there is the paranoia. Whelp is waiting as there's a team fight on the other side. As Snatch gets one, Rick Grimes is gone, and now it's just the bot lane left standing as Bloodstains is now invisible from that Zaya's Love, and the Grey Gorilla, last one standing, will get shut down under the tier 2, as that's a pair of doubles down bot side, and there's Baron up, there's an open mid lane, everything's on the table for Brooklyn.
How many open inhibs do you think Brooklyn wants, J-Turbo?
I think they want all of them. Maybe not all of them right now. Spawn timers are close, no Baron in sight. I guess that is the trouble of an extended chase down this early, is you can't convert as much as you might want to, at least in the bases. I don't know. Whelp just wants it. He doesn't care. Was trying to go through it all. No Solitary Skill. Doesn't have the Death Realm. That's still a level 14 Mordekaiser. He's still strong. And that's almost...
Like, Solitary Skill has just been farming up here. He's chilling. He's moisturized.
Chilling.
Like, the rest of the map might be falling apart. But for Solitary Skill, he's solitarily doing fine. And one thing we couldn't touch on because of the fight in the bot mid that happened there, was the fact that Solitary Skill survived the 1v2, got the kill on Phil, and still held the turret against Whelp. So this Mord is potentially the one saving grace for St. Clair Saints. They just need to actually get Solitary Skill to the fights. If he takes Whelp out of the fight, we've seen that St. Clair, it's closer to even ground what they're able to do.
It's closer, but that fight was still a 3v4, and Invisible Love and Snatch still just went right through it. And now, Death Realm's up in a second! Not quite soon enough, as that is going to be the revenge coming through. First death for the Mordekaiser on the top side is now everybody on St. Clair has their first death of the game, and it's going to be Baron started up with that extra Titan of Metal no longer in the top side. Now Snatch will get ran down by the ADCs, but I don't think there's much there. And this is Brooklyn keeping that game wide open.
Yeah, once they get that Baron as well, J-Turbo, it's going to be so much easier to push in. The one thing we had said that Brooklyn might struggle to do at this phase of the game, not an issue whatsoever with that Baron buff. They just need to go back, go shopping, come back in, and finish the job. And for St. Clair Saints, it's got to be one monumental engage from either Bloodstains or Bad Rick. Heck, from both of them working together, I don't see how the Saints are going to pull off a miracle.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I think there's a world where maybe there's some over-aggression that gets punished. I think if, Whelp gets a little over-eager, gets sent to the Death Realm, and maybe there's a chance, right?
QSS.
Oh, that's true. He does have a QSS just for that Mordekaiser, so now Whelp can't even be taken out of the picture. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't see a path back for St. Clair. Even the Cyclone on everybody into an Encore, I still just don't see there being enough damage.
Maybe. I'm still watching right now. The next breakpoint for me for St. Clair Saints is going to be that Mirror Mana for Grey Gorilla. Till that comes up, they are significantly weaker. And even when that comes up, I do think St. Clair Saints need to land a significant amount of poke before anything can happen. Oh my goodness. Look at that gold gap in the bot lane in the jungle. The jungle was somewhat expected. You're 9-0-3. But Invisible Love is up like 3,000 gold.
That is just that's a whole item. That is the entire, just the majority of the differential we're seeing between these two teams in those two carry roles. Is now it looks like we are going to see that fight. We are going to see a one shot, and we're not going to see the continuation quite yet, as that's going to be Solitary Skill finally involved in one of these fights. There's the re-engage attempted, and there's the quickness. That's going to be the entire backline going down as Solitary Skill gets denied by the QSSs. That's a double kill onto Rick Grimes, and that's just going to be a CC layering onto Solitary as everyone stays alive for Brooklyn. Everyone's dead for St. Clair. This is looking like a 24-minute win in the season opener.
Bro, even with the short death timers at this point in the game, it's just not enough to do anything. Encore comes out for the last time this game just to see us off, and Brooklyn College, the team with experience working together, shows us why they were a top 4 in the NECC Champion Nationals.
Yeah, they were in top form today. That jungle mid lane synergy, absolutely incredible. But I do want to shine a light on St. Clair and just highlight the fact that they were incredibly patient. They played still a very solid game from their position. Unfortunate that their mid lane went the way it did, and there was that eventual snowball, but we weren't seeing these extra fights taken. We were still seeing a level of discipline. So even though this was a game 1 stomp, I've got a feeling that game 2 is not going to be quite so one-sided.
Oh, 100% I agree with you. St. Clair, throughout all of that game, individually in their lanes still showed great strength. I don't think there's a single lane where you point that lane and say, hey, they lost in their laning phase. No, it was all to do with how the team was coming together. And that's where we've been praising Brooklyn College all through this game. The way Hwelp not just worked with Snatch, but with all the other lanes as well, especially in that bot lane. That gank that came out of nowhere, that kill, still lingers in my mind after he paranoid mid and just showed up bot lane. And I think for St. Clair Saints, they need a track Hwelp. They need to find a way to deal with that. Maybe you even throw a third bandage man. Maybe you go for that Nocturne. It came out left field, but it was undeniably effective.
Yeah, that Nocturne, I think, was the key to Brooklyn's success, and I don't think we're going to see it left up, as we are going to go to a quick break before we get into game number 2 of week 1 here in the ECAC.
To see. So even though we haven't seen North Georgia really be able to march forward with a lot of convincing attacks, at least the backline up until now has been secure. Can't get the read on the bounce, and that's finally our first goal. 10 seconds to go for Kennesaw trying to close this one out.
Yeah, still with the pressure here from Kennesaw. Now only our second demo. This one from downtown, and that's going to be...
Welcome back to ECAC Elite League of Legends. As we just saw, Brooklyn need to win early and go on to win early, and it's St. Clair looking to strike back.
And Jason, the thing we have to keep in mind is this St. Clair Saints team. They're newer. They're not as experienced working together, and it's week 1. It's the first game of the split, and it was a bit of a rough handling for them. So we have to see how they bounce back. But we were so impressed with Brooklyn College, and going into game 2, there has to be adaptation from the Saints, whether it be bans or picks. They've got to change things up, because if not, Brooklyn College, they can just run the same thing back over again.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Walp just get ahead and stay ahead. Those opening 7 minutes were pretty passive, but the second we saw that first blood in the mid lane, it was just, you said it. Watch for the Nocturne 6. We watched for it. It delivered, and it was nonstop action after that. So I think this Nocturne RMC gonna just be off. I don't want to see it. I want to see ban number 1 for St. Clair, because if anything, it's as much that mental release. Right? You're not seeing the same. You're not having the lights turned off every 60 seconds like you did last game, right? And that feels a little better.
Yeah, for sure. Nocturne has a disproportionate effect on organized games where you're communicating with your team, because turning the lights out, that's a global thing. We talk about him being a semi-global because he can show up anywhere, but turning out the lights affects everybody on the enemy team. Not to mention, we saw as well towards the end when they wanted to get some picks on Snatch, they were rotating 4 members there, because first, Whelp was very, very fed, but secondly, if you don't know where Whelp is, you've got to assume that Whelp is covering the lane that you're about to gank. So if you take Whelp out, take Nocturne, out, there's not a lot of other champions that can do that from the jungle. So I'd agree with that particular ban. I'm curious as well, Jacob, if we see a ban into one of the other roles as well, because I think the Lissandra for Snatch is a very, very interesting pick. It wasn't the carry that we often expect from mid lanes, but Snatch blinded that champion and still did great on it. And even if you don't have a Nocturne, any sort of damage jungler would still pair very well with that Lissandra mid.
Yeah, and it lets Snatch be a facilitator, right? It lets Snatch just focus on enabling this Nocturne, not worry too much about whether or not you get the kills on this Lissandra, but worry about whether or not you're getting that lockdown, you're getting that chain CC. And that was enough. So I think even if that Lissandra is taken away, Snatch still just, as far as being enabled on that play style, will continue to make impact as we see the Camille being the first one taken away. Still don't want to see that in Phil's hand.
Fair. And we'll have to see if there's any other adaptations. Of course, we have to note St. Clair opting for the blue side this game, so they will have first pick. And last game, the first pick that came through for Brooklyn was the Rakan, which, as you mentioned, JT, was such a versatile pickup. I wouldn't be surprised if St. Clair want to pick it up themselves. I don't think there's a lot of supports that offer quite the same degree of mobility and engage that Rakan does.
Yeah, and we saw it used to such great effect last game as that extension on the Nocturne, right? That Nocturne's in, boom, you've suddenly got a checkpoint to jump off of and keep racing into that fight. We saw just these continuations, these extensions, one after the other with that Rakan. So I'd expect that to be a priority pick for St. Clair. Get Bloodstains involved, not just stuck in the back line on this Seraphine and unable to do much. Enable the pick, enable the champion, enable the player. But now we're getting into these final bans, and St. Clair did get rid of that Lissandra, as you said, but there is still that Nocturne up. There's still a lot of scary stuff on the table that can be taken away.
Yeah, and I agree with you, JT. Okay, there we go. I think the Nocturne's the bigger issue. So they too agree. They take both the Lissandra and the Nocturne off the table. Now for Brooklyn, their last ban last game was Kai'Sa. I don't see a need to change that up. If you absolutely want to, I do think it's the safest ban to open up if you want to take away that Rakan from St. Clair. But Bloodstains, she mostly likes Enchanter champions. I don't know if she knows or is comfortable whipping out that Rakan here. And I guess Brooklyn's willing to say, hey, we're willing to take that risk. And we don't think you actually play Engage champions.
That's true. Honestly, the fact is, if Bloodstains is that primary Enchanter player, she just might not have a Rakan in the playbook. I'd hope to see it. I want to see that Rakan. Instead, it's going to be, at least right now, the hover for Solitary, that Aatrox. And considering last game, they were the only member to sort of stay ahead and keep winning their matchup throughout the game, putting them on a carry, I think, is a great call. And we saw how much focus there was last game on that top lane. I think 3 bans from Brooklyn. So now once again securing that strong pick early.
Yeah, and the Aatrox was one of those bans that you were talking about, J Turbo, taken away. But that does mean that Brooklyn can just go back and run exactly what they did last game. They can go with the Xayah Rakan. That's the first prediction. Sure enough, Xayah's
There's
locked
one.
in. Yeah, I think Rakan's the stronger part of that duo. So, yep, there we go.
But it's because it's Xayah Rakan, not Rakan Xayah, that you pick it in this order, right? You gotta stay true to it.
Okay, ladies first. That's how this goes, J Turbo.
Yeah, that's what it seems. Brooklyn's sticking to that, but nothing crazy in the bot lane quite yet. And I think Brooklyn is very happy to just keep that option. They didn't need a ton of help. They didn't get a ton of help until later, and then once they got the help, it just snowballed as we're seeing the Sivir hover come through and the lock-in. And I like this a lot for Grey Gorilla. Poke option brings wave clear to the table. Don't need anything else.
I mean, it's strong team fighting scaling as well. Sivir is actually one of the strongest late game AD carries in a team fights because of the bouncing blades, the way it just does so much damage to so many people. And for Xayah as well, the spell shield specifically is going to mess up her blade call. It nullifies a lot of the damage component as well, paired with the Seraphine Sinclair. It feels like they're really they're doubling down on this sort of team fight composition with that Aatrox. They're saying, hey, we saw what Brooklyn brought last time. With the exception of the Nocturne, it was a generally like engaged composition that came through. We're daring you to engage onto us now. We've got even more tools to actually team fight with. And Brooklyn, they're taking up that challenge. They say, okay, you threw that gauntlet, we'll pick it right up. Melfight rounding out their first round of picks.
Yeah. 3 out of 5, the exact same. The other 2 out of 5 banned away from Brooklyn. So we're going to expect something engage in the jungle. I think if it's not banned away, we maybe look at that at a Jarvan. He's probably one of the strongest champions.
Agreed.
Now. And then in that mid lane, something utility, something facilitating. Like a Vex, even if you want to just throw someone in there who has some wave clear, has some engage, doesn't care too much, has some CC. I could see it, but RMC, looking at these two teams, where they're building, how do you think they're going to close out?
Well, as you mentioned for Brooklyn, I think JJ, you took the words right out of my mouth. So let's look at St. Clair a little bit. They're still looking for, looks like their mid laner and their jungle as well. So same thing for them. And Kadito on the Tristana, frankly, looked quite good last game. I think if you want to run the Tristana back, you can. My only concern is a lack of magic damage. So if you're looking for a team fight scaling magic damage mid laner, J-Turbo, well, there is one who just got nerfed this patch. Azir, the Emperor of Shurima. He's still up and available. To me, I think that's where I'd be looking at for Kadito a little bit. As for jungle, that J4 that you mentioned, I think would be a great pickup for them as well.
I mean, Jarvan is just in such a strong spot right now. It makes sense to look at him, but we haven't seen much focus from either of these teams. I mean, he still is that early snowball champ. That's why he's so strong. He has that 2-item power spike, and that's where you expect. And maybe there it is. There's the Jarvan ban, as it is for junglers pretty much in this second round of bans as that focus. Whalp shown last game that he is that difference maker, and Fadric Grimes certainly on the Wukong showed that he wanted to be that kind of facilitator, difference maker. Now both of them going to have to be on something new.
Yeah, and for the side of Whalp here, his most played was Graves. That was what got banned in the first round last game. So that's open and available. But instead of saving counterpick for mid, for a solo lane J-Turbo, which is usually what we see, it looks like they're hovering the Orianna, which is great.
Lock it in.
Okay, not a lot of bad matchups. It's a great blind pick. But they're saving counterpick for Whalp. So whatever Whalp actually picks up here, to me, it's got to be a big sort of champion that can mess things up. Oh, we were talking about it. I've not cast it prior, J-Turbo. Is tonight the night?
I think tonight's the night. It's looking more and more likely. She fits pretty well into this comp. You'd just be asking Kodita to probably go on a control mage. We got the Briar locked in, as that is going to be some extra spice, some extra heat, some extra just newness into it, right? New season, new split, new everything, new champion. Wouldn't have it any other way.
I love it. And okay, the Azir that we were talking about, J-Turbo, we already discussed that. So we can talk more about Briar because I'm excited. Her loss of control is such a funny mechanic. In solo queue, I've seen montages of her just running into turrets and dying. And it's not the player's fault. It was just a J-Turbo montage. No, I'm kidding. But because the other half of the montage, of course, is the way she can absolutely wreck people in fights as well. And the amount of damage that she does, especially in duels, the answer for Whelp into that looks like, is this going to be a jungle Gwen as the answer?
I've heard whispers.
Okay.
It's locked in.
Okay.
It is locked in. We do have the Gwen. I've heard, so just seen some bits about this, that there's a chance that Gwen still has that potential. She was buffed in the jungle as far as her neutral camp ability. And I don't hate it in this team comp because you need a standalone fighter. You need someone who can take these kinds of fights and options. And for Brooklyn, they've got a huge team fight, and Gwen works well if you need a single solo answer. And she's also got that extension potential, right? You get the needle when you keep sliding forward, and of course you got your little invulnerable area. But overall, just looking at both teams, it looks like St. Clair, as you mentioned early on in the draft, all in on that team fighting.
Yeah, and I think last game I said that I liked Brooklyn's draft in isolation, but I liked St. Clair's answers. This time it kind of feels the inverse, where I feel like St. Clair, that's a great team fighting composition. If they get to late JTM, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But the key there is if they get to late. And we think back to what happened last game. What was that, 24 minutes, 25 minutes? Brooklyn just kind of ended the game. So I don't know if they can do the same with the Gwen. Gwen, not a strong and early ganker, really good skilling, but relies very heavily on the lanes to set her up. So we'll have to see if Help is able to kind of snowball as well as he did last game.
Yeah, that's going to be a real question. But also just Brooklyn bringing the team fight as well, as I'm just thinking, I'm like, wait, this has got one of the old school team fight combos. Malphite Orianna. Bring it back. You put the ball on the rock, you get everybody, and suddenly you've got another clip for your montage. Now you've got the Rakan as well, another ball delivery system. You've got this Xayah who can keep herself safe. I mean, Brooklyn's happy to go late too. That's the thing, right?
Well, late for given value of late. The thing with wombo combos is that they spike in the mid game. So if they go really late, it gets a little bit dicey. Orianna does still scale up really, really nicely, but Malphite doesn't. So the rock and ball combo coming through here is on a bit of a timer. They do have the Gwen, they do have the Xayah, so they still have a lot of skill on their side, J-Turbo, and I agree. Like, it feels like both teams, they're really ramping up, gearing up for those massive, massive team fights, and that's something we actually didn't get to see last game because of the way Whelp got so far ahead. It was mostly just pickoffs happening repeatedly from the side of Brooklyn College. So coming into this second one, fingers crossed that we get the massive team fights, because it's nice to see one-sided games. It's nice to see a team really know how to close things out. But we want to see blood on the Rift, J to everyone, not just from Briar.
Yeah, we want to see these big 5v5s, these classic kind of compositions where you're getting ulti layered on ulti, and you've got like 35 minutes, two team fight comps just get to go at it, and one of them will win the game. That's what we hope for, but rarely ever does the drama live up to our hopefully written stories. As I think that as well, though, for St. Clair, this is a chance for them to really make a statement after that last game and claw their way back, especially if they can do it with Briar, the new champ, in their hands. Sticking with that Seraphine and showing that she can still work and putting Solitary on that real solo carry, I think is a chance for them to show a lot of the little details we saw them start to do right. We saw some bits and pieces of discipline. We saw some moments that they had some good coordination and some good map movements. Just couldn't put it together in the face of Whelp. And now for Brooklyn, can they keep the ball rolling?
Yeah, and Brooklyn's coach, technical coach, actually said that he really prioritizes communications in a team above all else. And I think we saw a lot of that in game one with how neat and clean the rotations were from the side of Brooklyn, how decisive the engages were. And that's something I hope we continue to see going into this game too, especially with that Malphite Orianna combo, the wombo combo, ball delivery. I want to see more of that, because if they don't have that level of decisiveness, like we said, St. Clair's laning was really, really good. And if you don't have the advantage of that better communications, then this could get us to a game 3. We could be going the full distance tonight.
Yeah, that communication is key, making sure that everyone's on the same page. As you said, we saw it in action for Brooklyn last game, whether it was coordinating Whelp's rotations, whether it was covering those other lanes, or making those fights continue to work even when that whole team wasn't put together. And for St. Clair, we saw their communication as well, I mean, for me, it's seeing Solitary Skill come down and catch waves. It's seeing Badrick Grimes make sure he's moving with that whole squad. It's Badito trying to call out when someone's not around, but Brooklyn brought some extra pieces, and as well, so did St. Clair. And now as we're getting into game number 2, it's going to be a matter of if the Saints keep this ball rolling or if Brooklyn just wants to have an early night. I'm personally always here for a game 3. I always want to see it go to the end, but I'm sure for Brooklyn being on the East Coast, they're ready to end off this opening week of season.
I just want to see some nice big 5-on-5. JJ Rock. I'm not even worried about a game 3 yet. I just want to see blood on the Reds for this particular game. Now, there was something you mentioned, JJ Rock, that I think was actually very interesting. Solitary Skill, rotating him down. As you mentioned, last game, the comms were there. They got Solitary Skill down to cover lanes, especially early on. But one thing the Saints did struggle with was getting Solitary Skill to the fights. And on a Mordekaiser, that's fine, right? You want that isolated lane people gank you. Your ultimate's literally based around you being isolated and creating 1v1 situations. But that's not true for Aatrox. For the Aatrox, Aatrox is a team fight monster. Sure, he can pressure very well in lane. He can duel out as well. But he's really about those bigger fights. So Solitary Skill this game will not just have to communicate to get down to catch waves, but actually be there for the bigger team fights.
Yeah, and the fact that St. Clair is also so clearly putting a lot of this individual focus, because even though Sivir is that later game carry, she's still, I think, fundamentally a more supportive ADC. She's still there for her ultimate and for her ability to stay alive and keep these waves pushing. And Desir as well, with those nerfs coming through, he's not going to be as significant of a damage threat. And he is that setup. That onus is going to be on Solitary Skill in these fights to be that X factor. And all going to start with making sure that you are winning your lane. And it seems like with that early control, and of course the fact you're up against a Malphite, that's already well in tow.
Yeah, and it's worth noting as well, Phil running the Duran's Ring, which, hey, it's very common. Malphite does have mana issues, even if you do run down the sorcery tree and pick up a mana flow band. But it does mean that he's a bit squishier, and certainly can be punished by that Aatrox, who is a manaless champion, and more than happy to trade early with his health when he's got a Duran's shield.
Yeah. And the manaless characters always out here causing us to hurt when we've got mana, forcing us to change this itemization. Yeah, you can just buy a Doran shield. It doesn't need mana. It doesn't need any extra resources besides my tears to fuel all of those swings. I mean, that's what it feels like. Aatrox. I'm a jungler, and I still ban him because it's one of those champs where it's like, look at that. He just deals your entire health bar when you're just standing next to him.
Well, that's why Aatrox is manaless. He ain't got no tears.
Oh, that's right. You're right. You're right. Oh!
See, Riot's 5-head. We think sometimes they make poor choices. No, it's all just thematic. It's
all actually just a really deep lore reference.
Yeah, it's a setup for Arcane Season 2 or Season 3. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
For now, though, junglers just full clearing their way through. Badrick Grimes now heading to the top lane. And I don't know how good Briar Gangs are. Are we going to get to witness this? Phil has some crazy spidey senses. Last game, too. He did this in the Malphite, where he just backs the perfect moments.
Oh, now, though. Did stop for a second, got staggered, and that's going to be the head rush. Stun, that's going to be the Berserk, and that's going to be first blood for Solitary Skill, going exactly how St. Clair wants it to this time around.
Phil should have trusted his senses a little bit more, man. Like, his instincts were spot on. There was a gank coming in, and we just saw how much damage Briar can put out. As long as there's any CC in lanes, it really does feel like Badrick's Grime is going to be able to make people hurt. Codito and Snatch out of mana, just trading autos in the mid lane.
Those are the most intense fights when you just have mid laners autoing each other, especially with these extra AP damages. But now we got a bit of a berserk going forward. There's the head rush down, but I don't think was ready for an extra pair of scissors to come through, as that's going to be the knock away. And seems Walt wanted a little bit more, but just the disengage. That's going to be just one kill on the board for St. Clair, but make moves and trying to pick up these kills.
Yeah, and I like this so much more than what we saw last game, where it just felt like Walt took over the early game. Badrick Grimes now applying a lot more pressure in the early game. That's what we kind of need to see. When we mentioned before, more of a scaling champion. Realistically, her spike is level 6 when she gets needlework. Needlework is a huge part of her kit. She doesn't have any innate CC. Otherwise, Briar back to the top lane.
On Phil trying to take a chance off of this big wave, but instead just gonna get shut down, pulled back, and went for the flash, but layering just a little too strong, and that is already 2 deaths in the top lane.
But it physically hurt me to see Phil try and get next to that wall. That is a big wall. If you're not right up against it, the flash won't work, but Aatrox just pulling them away, and this is troubling, because we said before, if Malphite doesn't lose his lane, he's kind of won his lane. But despite the fact that Phil's doing a great job keeping up in CS, he is losing kills over to the Aatrox, to the Briar, to champions who can and will become a menace. Even worse is the fact that if Briar gets ahead, that's your jungler. Bad Rig Grimes is going to spread that to the other lanes. It won't just be contained to that 1v1 in the top.
Exactly. And I think that's what St. Clair's banking on, is the fact that they can convert this lead out and make it impact those fights. And already seeing 800 gold, or 600 really in the top side, about 400 in the jungle, starting to build a small lead. You know, nothing crazy, but that can be an extra longsword for the Briar, right? As opposed to an Amptome for Wall, right? That could be the difference maker in some of these fights. Now, the Shurima Shuffle attempted. Not quite gonna come down with the kill, and instead looks like one the other way as Snatch punishes the misplay.
Okay, as much as Snatch struggled last game, that was when Snatch was going on the offensive. Defensively, that shockwave was clutch, and Kadito got a little bit greedy. I respect the fact that Kadito kind of thought, okay, you know what? Damned if I do, damned if I don't. Let's try and make this work, but Snatch is already getting a small lead. It's about to become a bigger one.
Oh, and I think that is something Brooklyn are going to be very happy to have in their back pocket as an extra winning lane. Is Solitary missing the first spell rotation will allow for Phil to at least answer back. But still a bit of a CS lead building, that lead continuing to matter in that top side. But Phil, I think, happy just the fact that you can, you know, take a hit, stay in lane.
Yeah, Phil just has to be careful though. He doesn't have any sort of innate regen. His refillable pot, he's already kind of drunk all of it. So he's relying a lot on his passive and his shield right now. I don't know how much longer that's going to last. I feel like for Brooklyn at this point, I almost want to see Hope just quite rush down bot, try and get a kill, get that early dragon so that you can reinforce top at the right time. Because if not, Herald spawning in 30 seconds, and St. Clair feel like they have a lock on that one.
Exactly, especially already moving into this topside jungle, looking for Whalp, knowing that expected red timer, and oof, this Gwenclear just fast enough to escape that timing as Will get spotted, but not quite by the waiting claws that St. Clair was putting together.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm happy that Whalp doesn't get caught on that red, or sad by the fact that they got spotted. Now St. Clair knows that, hey, Whalp's topside. We can leave Solitary's skill to kind of just handle the 1v1, heck, even handle the 1v2. He does have flash up, and try and send bad Rick Grimes somewhere else. Or third option, they want the 2v2.
AB is, Whalp is actually going to start walking away, recognizing that this is not a fight they will win, and it's St. Clair keeping that status up topside, and will result in this first Herald being taken away.
Okay, St. Clair, they're stronger. Well, are they actually stronger though? We just saw the gold difference. Kadito is actually behind in gold, but the items are fairly even bot lane.
Oh, there's the engage on the Grey Gorilla as he's going low. Burning, Invisible Love. Snatches away the kill as the Feather Storm used to secure the double. As that's Brooklyn, baby, staying strong in the bot side.
The Unseen Love is the deadliest general? Something like that? This Zyra Control, this is just... I feel like we didn't give enough credit to Invisible Love and Smurfy last game, right? It was all about Whelp's Nocturne. But let's not forget, Invisible Love was like 6-0, I think at the end, or 7-0, and had like up 3,000 gold. And they're doing it again, on their own, without any jungle pressure.
Yeah, just completely on their own, winning this matchup bot side. And I mean, it comes from the fact that St. Clair drafted a very passive bot lane, I think by design, to just try and skate through the early game. But now it's coming back, and it's giving this early lead over to Invisible Love, and I think is going to make the map a lot harder for St. Clair to play, as we've already seen that Bad Rick Grimes wants to focus on this top side.
Yeah, now for St. Clair, Bad Rick Grimes might not have a choice but to focus on this top side with how the mid and bot lane have gone. We saw the attention spent to the mid lane backfired. Snatch ends up getting the kill. And by the way, Snatch already picked up a Dark Seal when that kill went down. So that's already 2 stacks. Every mistake you make in the mid lane now is compounded by the fact of that stacking item. And you've got Invisible Love and Smurfy in this bot lane who are also running ahead. I don't know if Bad Rick Grimes can actually punish these lanes effectively. Both of them have safety tools, Shockwave to pull back the Briar, and for Invisible Love, anytime Featherstorm's up, that's just not diveable.
It's true. I mean, there's that Featherstorm was used on the counter dive, but Rick Grimes doesn't want it, just wants to head straight top once again, try and get another kill for Solitary, as now with the Bramble Bombies combo in hand, feels very tough for this Aatrox to actually impact. Does look like this is going to turn into the fight as the timing comes together. And now with the World Ender committed, there is the Unstoppable Force. There is the Flash as well. And no certain death for Phil this time around. It's a lot of resources used and nothing gained for St. Clair.
Well, Phil's back gets cancelled. And remember that Herald earlier, JJ? It's being dropped. Phil is potentially diveable.
Does look doable, but it seems we might have a pair of dives across the map. As first one engaged bot side, Invisible Love on a killing spree already. As it seems that's going to be it for Gorilla. Snatch getting Codito in the mid lane on a solo. So it seems even with that single kill up top side for Solitary, it is Brooklyn all over the map. That's an execute too. Oh no.
Oh man. Okay. You know what? We just witnessed a pentakill for Brooklyn College. I know Solitary skill, didn't die, but we had 4 members of them dead, and our observer probably just died trying to track all of that. Rest in peace, Samantha. Where's this coming from? Brooklyn, last game we were saying St. Clair's individual lanes were going well for them. That was their strength. This game, Brooklyn College is winning their lanes. They're winning their matchups. Even though Phil goes on the top lane, I count that a win because Phil bought enough time, held 2 members, and still managed to find a kill out of it. So Brooklyn College just winning across the board, and I'm scared for St. Clair College now. So where does St. Clair go from this? I need to see them come together as a team to be able to revive my hopes.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's going to have to be around this Aatrox on a neutral objective, right? Because even if you didn't want them to be, now these utility carries are just utility. There's no carrying happening from Codito and Grey Gorilla at this moment. I mean, I will say for Grey Gorilla, in a decent enough spot now that the static is picked up and that cull is completed, so is going to be able to fill that Sivir role, but I think St. Clair was hoping that it wouldn't just be a wave clear bot this time around, and same for Codito in the mid lane, as that's another kill bot side onto Bloodstains.
Yeah, okay, Grey Gorilla might be in a decent spot. Bloodstains is... The spot she's at is smeared all over the floor right now. This is not ideal. And Invisible Love now just going to keep on pushing. They don't have Herald, so they won't be able to get that massive charge that we saw last game. But they will be able to continue.
And even stealing away the baby Krugs. Denying all the farm. The cannon still goes down. Oh, this is a massacre bot side.
Yeah, they're taking their time, too. I love seeing this. It's not something we see very, very much in modern League of Legends, but taking your time to kill the turret, to let the turret deny as much minions as possible, is a valid and very solid strategy. Phil still has ultimate.
Well, still has his way out. Does get stunned up, and just waits. Just waits it out. And that's the trouble with Malphite. You can always just press that pretty little R button.
I love the fact that Solitary Skill actually picked up a Soroda's first item. I do think it's a very interesting choice, not running for the Mythic, but with the armor stacking that Phil is doing, it's useful. And I think the idea here is also to provide the slow to allow for the gank. But because Phil is playing so defensively and is willing to drop CS to stay alive, he just dashes in the turret. He's never in a position where Soroda is allowing Rick Grimes to actually get the ganks off. And the more time Rick is spending in this top lane, it's time not spent farming. So there is a bit of a trade-off, and it feels like St. Clair is in a bit of a damage control mode. Now that Dragon's up, we're saying that, hey, maybe a big team fight's where it's at.
Well, now's the time to show that to us.
And Solitary does have teleport. Phil does not, but doesn't matter for St. Clair as the Aatrox is in the bot lane. The Malphite is heading top, so that is a temporary numbers advantage, but in just one quick combo, Codito is already sent down as the Encore will go ahead and catch Smurfy, and Berserk will secure its first kill. That's going to be one down for this fight as Drake started up, and it does seem that Brooklyn will back away, and it's the first win for St. Clair, but it took bringing everybody down.
Hey, but a win's a win, JJ, everyone. It's exactly what the doctor ordered for the Saints. I was actually getting worried because Snatch was dominating Codito in that 1v1, and that meant that the fight was likely... Okay,
Not quite.
You know what? That ult is called certain death. It has been anything but.
It's been like paralleled. Like just walking right in line with whatever it's at least for now. I think that we're gonna see some good moments where we get that. But so far, we are seeing just this continued pressure. Right, the resources spread around for Brooklyn after that fight, but now it looks like the Herald is the next point of focus as Scuttle secured. That might de-incentivize any fighting as still just an ability trait.
I'm actually curious because we talk about St. Clair wanting a team fight as if they're the stronger team. I don't actually know if they're necessarily stronger in a team fight, especially if the AD carries get involved. So I almost want to see Brooklyn be a bit more aggressive and actually step up to try and contest here. Snatch, though, taking a big chunk back from that Ludens. That's good for St. Clair.
Yeah, it is. That is big, and now Phil is well chunked out. This is going to create the space for this Herald. Is now Phil going very low, goes for the instant re-engage, and Solitary has team members nearby, but certainly not close enough, as that's a counter knock-up. There's Berserk in the middle, as there's at least one member stunned up, but nobody quite committing after that initial re-engage. Solitary skill trying to play a little too alone, and the flash forward as it's gonna be another kill snatched away in the mid lane.
Orianna's autos do deceptive amounts of damage because of her passive, the ability to add some of that magic damage, and that was huge. A lot of ultimates blown from Brooklyn. If they had walked away from that, Codito had TP, and that would have given them the advantage. As it stands, though, TP coming in, Encore from Bloodstains.
Ooh, just immediately canceled out by that immunity. And St. Clair threw one big cooldown at it. That's it.
Yeah. And that's why JJ was talking about the fact that I think Brooklyn can actually take these team fights at this point, and you're seeing that SCC, they recognize that and they're saying, okay, maybe we don't go too hard here because we're not confident. If we go get all our members ready to go, then we just seat that over, and that's going to give Brooklyn College yet another Herald to be able to use. Last game, pardon me, we saw Herald take, was it 3 turrets? And even a charge off of the inhibitor, though they didn't take it.
Gosh, yeah, bot side, that was disgusting. Just entire lane opened up, and and the thing is, I don't think that Brooklyn went bot side again until they were in the base taking the inhib with Baron. Like, I don't think they went bot lane again because they didn't need to.
And I'm just wondering right now if Brooklyn can replicate that success because their lanes have been going better than it did last game for them. So, you know, if they can pull SCC apart, there's a world where I see them, you know, pulling St. Clair down to cover that bot lane, and they just 5-man that top side with Herald.
Yeah, I mean, definitely possible, and especially with how strong Invisible Lover is, right? 5-0, IE Kraken at 13 and a half or 18 and a half minutes. Like, this is a very strong Xayah who is ready to rumble. Solitary might have bitten off a little more than he could chew, as there is that Xayah in hand, and it's just going to be a run away from the rest of St. Clair as the Saints survive, now potentially looking for a re-engage with Codito. This is going to be the jump over the wall and the disengage. That is a lot expended once again for nothing.
Yeah, two ultimates, Solitary Skill and Grey Gorilla both used theirs. The teleport from Codito as well, and honestly, I was terrified. You're in a choke point against a Xayah, that could potentially be deadly, so they almost had to do it. Phil still has Unstoppable Force to get out.
And just playing the margin so well, and as well with the build that Phil is going for, this Sunfire into Frozen Gauntlets, you're going to get quite a lot of CDR afterwards, so that ultimate is of course not going to be very long cooldown, especially like already level 12, so having that level 2 makes life so difficult for St. Clair trying to get Solitary a kill, and you're matched up against this Malphite and just can't do anything.
JJ, bold of you to assume that we're going to see any completed items from Phil.
You're right, my bad.
The Balmy Cinder into Bramble Vest, into Chainville, into Sheen, into Kindle Gem.
Yeah, you know what? We'll get there eventually. We'll get there eventually. We got a lot of stats, and a lot of those stats are real good for this Malphite, and I think that's where he wants to be right now.
Yeah, and that's fine. Phil doesn't need to complete the item. He's not really looking to be able to push out Solitary skill 1v1. If you can, great. But really, it's just about creating that space. A lot of it's about his ultimate and just standing there to allow Invisible Love to pump out that damage. The gold gap actually between Solitary skill and Phil is about where we'd expect with the items. But I want to look at the mid and bot lane where Snatch and Invisible Love are starting to get ahead. Invisible Love was the first person to 2 items, and Brooklyn hasn't been able to find a fight since then. But they are still stacking objectives, and I think they are waiting, there we go, for Snatch to hit the 2 item power spike. Now is when I really want to see Brooklyn abuse the item advantage they have.
And especially with this being, that Seraph second being fully stacked, full shield available, and stopwatch in hand, this feels like a completely ready-to-roll Orianna for team fights, and Zaya has been ready to roll. The Shurelias is in hand, so I think, as you said, these big wombo combo team fights spike in the mid game. 20 minutes, 2 items coming through. This is their time to strike. Now Snatch trying to run away, will get shockwaved as is just buying time for Phil on the other hand to race on in. There's 1 onto the Aatrox and a Berserk breakdown as Snatch is on a rampage. Grey Gorilla forced to spell shield the rampaging rock that is just coming forward, but it's a trap. Look behind you as Invisible Love gets 1. There's 2, and a quick 4 kills for Brooklyn right into Baron. It looks like this game might have gone on for a little longer. It felt better for the St. Clair Saints, but Brooklyn are bouncing back and continuing with this 22-minute Baron.
And once again, it's the communications you're talking about, J-Turbo. The fact that Snatch was under pressure and was completely chill. That stopwatch you mentioned earlier when you're running through the inventories came in clutch and created so much time and space. And Phil, that's been the biggest Malphite ult we saw. That was maximum range, just barely catching Solitary skill and Rick Grimes in the same ultimate on the edges of it. The burst damage that came through. In the end, the first item is completed. It is going to be that Frozen Fist. So it looks like, or the Frostborn Gauntlet, pardon me, Malphite. Phil is looking like he wants the damage now because, heck, the team's ahead. They can afford to. They don't need the tank. They're going for burst.
I mean, that was so much damage coming through from the Orianna. and she's checking the bushes. You got nothing. Solitary, as now, maybe with a few extra members, will have some support. There's no extra Malphite teleport. Snatch still going to try and fight this one out. Don't think there's going to be the same level of shenanigans. He's still running away. And oh my god, Grey Gorilla almost does go down. That's still an extra kill. Mid lane turret to boot as well. And everything's going good for Brooklyn. They got the top turret going down as we speak. Mid inhib soon to fall in the next couple seconds. And I was expecting maybe a little bit of a longer game. No, Brooklyn wants 2 back-to-back 25-minuters. They want to end their week strong. They want, that's what it is. They want to get out before all their friends have to head out. And they just burned on the gas in a couple seconds.
Yeah, and that bot lane play as well, it felt like St. Clair Saints wanted to give the kill over to Grey Gorilla specifically, but it ended up backfiring horrifically. Now, Phil, okay, that was designed as an engage. You picked Malphite for the backline access, but that's been an unstoppable escape. He no longer has it available, but backup's here. Nope, it's on his way.
Backup's here. EP to help. Snatch here. Onto the other. As Bloodstains gets a core, and now there's the Emperor's Divide to try and create a little space. And actually, it's just going to be the word Invisible Lodge. Scam if he's still running forward. They do not care about a thing. It's a double for Love. It's everyone here for Brooklyn, and it's going to be a 25-minute win, 30-minute series here for Brooklyn College. I mean, a couple players are a few seconds, but this is going to be the Nexus falling. There's Baroned up minions. There's a certain death, but it might just be for the Briar as Bad Rick Grimes gets down once again. Whelp stays alive, and the Nexus just... But the towers are gone, and the base is in shambles.
It is an open Nexus, J Turbo, and given with an Orianna, you actually have to be careful for Orianna backdoors. She does, as we mentioned before, a deceptive amount of damage with her auto attacks. Is there any they even have wards in the base as well? So Sinclair Saints, it's a little bit tough. The good news for them is Baron's still down for another almost 3 minutes, and Dragon is Cloud, and it's not Soul. Give it up, sit back in your base, and extend this as long as you can, because you want more than an hour for 2 games.
Yeah, and we're getting close. We're getting there. It's certainly possible. We need to see this clock get to like, what, 34 minutes? 30, 35?
Something like that, yeah.
To get an hour-long series. We'll see if we get there. Not looking likely, as everyone all together. Actually, Phil is the last one, just because he's lumbering forward. Big rock quite a bit to get it moving, so he's at the back of the line for now. But we'll eventually find his way to the front. As again, there's no Nexus turret. Oh, there's a Nexus turret.
Okay,
We've got a Zir in the game. There's still one more structure to rally behind. Indeed, maybe that SCC. It's Shurima. It's Shurima Community College as they're fighting on building their base back up, trying to do their best. A Solitary wants a flank on the side, but they're gonna do this right. As Invisible Love actually is just gonna pop the Feather Storm, and that looks like it'll be the rest of the fight. Phil's got a killing spree as that Briar goes down once again. There's Gorilla gone, and it's a shutdown actually for Solitary. He's starting to Aatrox at least a little bit. Eventually the damage gets dealt. Phil's in the back line, and I think this should be wanting the mages in the back. But that will be a 6-23 scoreline so far. Could change on the steps of the fountain as the Nexus goes down. A couple extra minions for stats, and that is the sub 60 minutes in College.
Dang, J Turbo. Brooklyn College ain't messing around. Their mid-game is utterly phenomenal. And hey, like we said, in game 1, we questioned their laning a little bit. It looked like St. Clair had better laning. Game 2, they should have now. Game 1 was warm-up. We said, hey, it's the first game of the season. And yeah, it truly was. Brooklyn needed a bit of time to warm up as well. And when they got rolling, they looked clean.
Yeah, oh my goodness. They were able to just put the key in the ignition and hit the gas and go. There was just a couple calls, right? I think near the end of game 2 is 22 minutes. They win one fight, they get one convincing win, and the game is over after. Yeah. And the team that won for the rest of the season is this ECAC Elite League, already showing there's some top talent ready to roll, right, RMC?
Yeah, and let me just double down on that. Let's keep in mind, Smurfy is a substitute.
Yeah!
That's not the usual starting support. So Brooklyn, yeah, they're looking real good. And let's talk a little bit about St. Clair Saints Academy as well, because there's a reason why we're harping so much on Brooklyn College being good. It's not St. Clair making mistakes. They weren't bad. Brooklyn was just better tonight. And for St. Clair, their top side, Back Rick Grimes and Solitary Skill had great sort of synergy together, especially on that top side of the map. They were able to make a lot of things happen together. So you can see sort of the building blocks for this team. And that's exactly what this team is. It's building blocks. They need time to actually build together. For a lot of these teams, regular season is less important. What matters is they qualify for playoffs. The regular season is for them to work together, learn to improve, because as we said before, collegiate, things change wildly between semesters and heck, within a semester.
Yeah. True, and for a new roster playing together, still a solid showing in, and we saw again those good moments, some great high-level awareness, and some really impressive discipline for those first 20 minutes shown, and I think that it shows that they've got some really good fundamentals, and this is a team that has dedicated teams around it, that has a lot to work on, and of course has some incredible talent that I think we'll be seeing throughout the season, maybe start to show up in the results as we are going to look for an interview and are going to run to a quick break as we had a banger of our first match. Stick around for that interview. Welcome back as we're closing out our ECAC Elite League coverage today. We just saw Brooklyn 60-minute 2-0 win over St. Clair College, and we are joined by their coach, Tentacle Coach. How are you after that win?
Feeling pretty good. The team, yeah, we had a pretty dominant win tonight, and first match of the ECAC season. Definitely can't complain, but now I also let my team know they set the bar real high, so they better keep it up for the rest of the season.
Okay, technical coach, as you said, high bar, and I know speaking to us before you mentioned that you really prize communications. At least from our perspective tonight, it looked like comms were on fire with how clean Brooklyn was. How do you feel about how the team's coming together and the sort of comms that we had tonight?
Yeah, I mean, 4 of these guys have been playing together for about a year now, though slightly different roles. But, it's been a lot of work getting them to, get the right calls down, make sure everyone's understanding, where they're going to be at. Jungle calming what he's doing, top calming what he's doing, getting summoner spells down. And I think tonight that really, really presented itself. We played a very comfortable draft for us. And yeah, it all coalesced really nicely. And I have only good things to say because they put the hard work in over the summer.
Okay, now I'm going to put you on the spot. If you only good things to say, who do you have the most good things to say about? Who's your MVP after tonight?
MVP. That's rough. So let me give a sort of a cop-out answer. But again, I'm a veteran, so the comms, like you said, is a big one for me. That's what I did. So my comms MVP in terms of communication tonight probably actually has to come from Snatch. Snatch was calming the best I have ever heard him calm. I played with him on the team last year. This was the most phenomenal night in terms of his comms, dictating what he was doing in the mid lane, working off of Whalp's comms. And then MVP in terms of gameplay, I mean, what Invisible Love did in bot lane. Oh, yeah. On top of that, with having Smurfy, who's actually our sub-support there, it was incredible. They both did really well. So bot lane and Snatch, phenomenal stuff. But the whole team, again, just made my evening. Phil too playing Malphite in the top lane. So
yeah, and I mean, sort of living up to the name, right? Getting that Phil role, making sure you have the tank available. But going across the team, you mentioned how they've been playing together for so long, even in a few different roles. So how has that sort of impacted their play, right? Is it just having that confidence and that trust in each other that when they say, I'm going to be here on this timing, or when they hear someone's doing something that they're just instinctually moving along? Is it that kind of level of coordination, or is it just they're comfortable and there's not that extra hurdle to get over to get them on the same page?
Yeah, I think this year they're feeling, stronger than we did at the end of the year last year. Phil actually ended up playing because he was my sub top laner, but he ended up playing support for us for the entire second half of the semester, going all the way through to the postseason stuff that we did in our other league, and him being back in top lane where he's comfortable. Whalp being the sort of rock for the team, he can kind of play anything he needs to fit the role for what we need. Sort of gives compositions identity. He's the team captain, and he does a lot of stuff that is, I would say, a bit more understated, but really strong for what they do. And then that, of course, enables Snatch and Invisible Love in bot lane to do things. And Princeton, who's not here tonight, instead we had Smurfy. But again, just they really do have a good understanding of how each one operates now. They sort of know where everyone's pitfalls are, and they're trying to help each other avoid them. Right? Snatch and Phil both have a tendency to like to fight in the lane, and so there's a lot of comms going around there about where jungle is and when we should be fighting and shouldn't. And tonight they listened to those calls really well. Both of them, in fact, giving them themselves and to each other. So that's the kind of stuff I really love to see as a coach.
I was going to say, I didn't see any pitfalls tonight, but technical coach, you've laid out the blueprint. So, other people in the elite division, listen to the interview, pay attention. I did want to ask you as well, technical coach, you mentioned that this team has played in multiple leagues together. I know that you guys made top 4 NECC champs division, and I think you guys played in East Conference as well for CLOL. So, wealth of experience. Now, into the ECAC, what are your thoughts on the league and specifically, some of the other teams in this division? How are you guys feeling about the competition?
Yeah, so ECAC is something we wanted to do last year, but we didn't. Just very bluntly, we didn't have a real budget. And through the efforts of folks at Brooklyn College, we now do. And so we wanted to be here because it's got good competition. I think the competition even looks stronger than it did last year for this division in league. You have teams like Fisher that are here. I mean, I think even St. Clair Academy and RPI still looks good. You've got a lot of teams that we definitely see as people that can kind of keep up with us, or are even arguably better than us that we have to work up to. So I still feel like we will be one of the strong teams here. But my guys know they've got an uphill battle every week. They're putting the work in, and they want to be on top. So yeah. So I like I said, I think we expect to be one of the stronger teams. But there's a lot of teams we respect here and a lot of folks we respect that we're looking forward to playing and going up.
Starting off 1-0, already putting yourselves ahead. A great performance already from you and your team, Tentacle Coach. Now going to give you an opportunity to shout out whoever you'd like for today's win. The floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, our teams, both of them, A and B team won tonight as well in the lower division. All of our socials are at CUNY BC Esports. Please, we're a newer program, but we're strong. We got a lot of teams. We're doing good stuff here. All of the folks at the Brooklyn College Club, Sasha, Salita, Whalp, who is also the treasurer for the club. Just a lot of good people working really hard to make sure that we can do this and play at the highest level we can. And quick shout out to our administrators, who are the reason that we are able to pay our league fees to come to ECAC. So thanks to them too.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Tentacle Coach, and for your team for giving us such a show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having us. Good luck to everybody else, too. Thanks to St. Clair.
What a wholesome group, JJ, buddy.
Yeah,
You know, you mentioned that Whelp is a treasurer. It makes sense, because he was making bank in that series. Well, but that's it for day one of League of Legends Day Turbo. It's the end of the week, as you mentioned, but just the start of the season. And despite being close to the end of the week, it's not the actual end of the week here on ESU. We still have more action over the weekend with the CECC East Regional Qualifiers this weekend. So make sure you come by and tune into that.
Yeah, absolutely huge. Starting that road to the Commissioner's Cup just this weekend. You're going to want to catch it right here at Esports U. But RMC, first game of the season, an absolute banger. And to everyone at home, thank you so much for coming out and watching, getting ready for another exciting season of ECAC League of Legends. That's going to be right here every Friday on Esports U. Thanks for tuning in and have a wonderful night.